Well, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Canadian Football Fanatics YouTube channel. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Inside the BCFC here on the Canadian Football Fanatics YouTube channel. We appreciate everybody for tuning in once again as we are into episode number 7 of covering the BCFC. As the summer is unfortunately coming to an end, folks, but that means the BCFC is only heating up more and more as we get into September and October. The weather starts to turn slightly, as I know we're going to get into. We won't lose the nice weather quite yet getting into September, but as the months start to get colder, the BCFC and the rest of the CGFL will only heat up as we get into, uh, you know, week number 7 and so on, and move closer and closer to playoff football in the CJFL and BCFC, especially. So as always, folks, covering all things British Columbia Football Conference on a weekly basis here on the CFF YouTube channel. So we appreciate you guys for following along all season long. It has been a ton of fun to cover the conference and be talking about it on a weekly basis. So, of course, if you guys are enjoying, apologies for the little bit of audio issues on last week's episode. We're trying to work through those right now. Hopefully, I'm coming at you guys loud and clear. But if you guys did enjoy and are enjoying, please be sure to leave a like on the video, comment down below, and most importantly, of course, subscribe to the channel. When you guys subscribe, press the notification bell. You guys get notified every single time we go live or upload a video like this one. Guys, just want to say a great big thank you to all you guys. We could definitely feel the support coming from you guys, not only on the Instagram account. Of course, you guys can follow us on our social media platforms as well. The subscriber count has definitely hit an upkick here in the last 6 or 7 months, and it is definitely much appreciated, guys, as we can try to grow our platform on YouTube. Doing quite well on Instagram as we are just under 4,000 followers, but really trying to grow the brand and grow our platform on YouTube. As I mentioned, as of the time of this recording, we are just under 500 subscribers, but I believe we were at 350 by or around the CFL draft time. So we have definitely seen an uptick in subscribers and appreciate that so much. So if you guys are tuning in, guys, the numbers don't lie. As always, over 75% of the people that are still consuming our content here on the YouTube channel are remained unsubscribed. So if you guys could subscribe, that would be awesome. And of course, we like to say, as the great Pat McAfee likes to say, be a friend, tell a friend about what we got going on here at the Canadian Football Fanatics as we cover all things Canadian football. That is from the grassroots on up. CGFL, U Sports, CFL, and even into the NFL. We're doing a little bit of NFL content this year. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying that as well. Trying to stay busy as the football season is pretty much here. NFL will start, and that'll be, um, you know, as I said, I joked a little bit last week, drinking out of a fire hose when it comes to covering Canadian football because all things will be going in full force, and it'll be a ton of fun and a lot of football to watch on a weekly basis. So, coming at you guys for episode 7. And we will get into a little bit of a recap here shortly, but this week is a little bit of a special one as we're going to be joined by a guest here in a matter of moments. Before we do get to that guest, just to touch on last week's games, Prince George coming off their second straight win, coming off another high, being able to get their third win of the season impressively and get into the third place in the BCFC. We'll chat about that game in a little bit. As I mentioned, Okanagan getting back to their dominant fashion, coming off their first bye week of the season, and they get an impressive win down in the Valley over the Huskers. And then lastly, the West Shore Rebels sweep the home and home series for the Battle of the Rock as those two teams will tangle one more time this season. And of course, it could be a fourth depending on how playoff implications shake out. But they're definitely going to play one more time up here in Nanaimo in the regular season. So as I mentioned, we will talk about those games here in a little bit, recap them, go through each game, kind of give you the numbers, who stood out. Of course, this week's going to be a little bit of a different one. But as I mentioned, as the summer starts to come to an end, folks, and you maybe go grab that hoodie, go grab that jacket, the BCFC is only heating up as there is, when you look at the standings, right, there's 6 teams in contentions for playoffs. Kamloops kind of needs to get on a roll here sooner or later where they can get a stack of win or two. They have, somewhat of a favorable, or I shouldn't say a favorable schedule coming up, but definitely have to stack a few wins to maybe get into conversation. But with that being said, the 6 teams in front of them are right in playoff conversations, and all these games down the stretch, especially the head-to-head ones, are going to be that much more important. When you look at PG up in the third spot, with 3 wins, and then some logjam in there with Langley, VI, and so on and so on. Of course, Valley only 1 win on the season, so they're 1 win away from putting themselves into conversation with those teams as well. But it's going to be an interesting one as we see down the stretch what happens and who's able to make it. Because obviously, with 6 teams in contentions, only 4 are moving on to playoffs. So 2 teams are going to be left out and feeling sorry for themselves. And it's going to be a long offseason starting a week earlier, I should say, than the other 4 teams who move on. So there was a little bit of news today in the BCFC, and that was a huge congratulations to Valley Huskers linebacker Andy Ofosuhene. Andy, hopefully we did a good job on that one, buddy, on the pronunciation of the last name. Hopefully we didn't butcher it too much, as Andy is now the all-time leader in defensive tackles in the BCFC with 181, breaking a previous record that stood since 1982. There was also another one that tied it in 1985, 1986. So a record that stood for a long time in the BCFC, as the BCFC has been around for a long time in and itself, but a record that stood since the 80s, darn near 50 years here. Pretty impressive. Good job by Andy. And Andy is actually going to be our guest here tonight on Inside the BCFC episode number 7. Excited to have Andy on, chat a little bit about what this record means to him, what this season, kind of his mindset, maybe some of the mentality for the Valley Huskers here. Although it's been a tough start, as I mentioned, still well within playoff contentions in Andy's 5th and final year in the BCFC. It's going to be an interesting one to hear from him. So let's send it over to that interview right now. Let's have Valley Huskers linebacker Andy Ofosuhene join us right now on the Canadian Football Fanatics Inside the BCFC episode number 7. Alrighty, Fanatics. Joining me now is the new current all-time leader in tackles in the British Columbia Football Conference, Valley Huskers linebacker Andy Ofosuhene. Andy, thanks for joining us. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well, man.
Good,
It's hard to
good.
complain on a beautiful day like this one, talking a little bit of football, recapping the week in the BCFC, but of course, chatting with yourself. As I was just chatting with you off camera, man, we said we had a little bit of news in the BCFC this morning. You broke the all-time record, excuse me, a record that stood since first set in 1982, 84, and I believe another one that came in 85, 86. But Andy, 181 tackles in your career, man. A ton of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I'm sure, gone into your 5-year career now here in your 5th year. But I'm sure the selfless player that you are and the team guy that you are, I'm sure you're going to lean towards, it's not all done by myself. But I'm just curious, man, for a very cool accomplishment like this one, what does this mean to you, just being, the now current all-time leader in tackles in the BCFC?
I mean, it means a lot to me. I feel like going into the season, I knew that I was close to beating it, but I still thought I was like 20 tackles away or so. So when I got the news today from coach, it was pretty exciting. But yeah, as you said, I mean, it takes a team to do anything like that. So like, while it's an accomplishment for me, it's also an accomplishment for everybody I've played along with, who's like helped me to get to this, I guess, this monument. But
Yeah, so that was gonna actually be my next question was,
yeah.
were you aware of the record possibly going into the season? And of course, with your, it being your 5th and final season, as you do probably any season, right? You sit down before the season, you start to, whether you like to make it public or kind of keep it within just yourself, you kind of have, you set goals for yourself, personal goals, and of course, like you say, team goals and stuff like that. But what was kind of your I guess mindset or mentality coming into the season, your 5th and final year in the BCFC, as I mentioned? And kind of the player, I feel like watching you from afar, you're kind of like a guy that just leaves it out all on the field and lets your play do than talking more so than anything. But what was kind of your mindset coming into this year as a 5th year player and with that record in your sights?
Well, I mean, every year it's the same goal. I mean, you want to win, and that was the goal going into the season as well. It still is. So that was the biggest goal, while there's still the record and everything that goes along with it. Like, it was my last year, and we've had great teams in the past, but we haven't been able to get over kind of the playoff hump. So we've been trying to work through that, and that was kind of the goal, the biggest goal going into this year: get that Cullen Cup, and then we move on from there. So winning was the biggest goal, but then also I feel like last year I had a good season, but I still didn't get any All Star nods or anything like that. So that was also kind of a motivating factor for me. While I still led the league in tackles last year, I still felt like there was still more I could have done to like show the league what I can do. all that. So that was kind of the biggest goal. I'm winning, and then also like showing the league that I still have more to prove, and yeah, still working towards that.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about that. You could call it maybe a chip on your shoulder, Andy. I talked about this a little bit with Coach Reese when we had him on to preview the season of, you know, talking about yourself specifically, a guy that wasn't recognized at all, as you mentioned, as an all-star in the BCFC, an all-Canadian, but a guy that, as now we're aware, all-time leader in tackles. You got to be pretty effective. You got to be a pretty high-level player to be doing that. Talk a little bit about that chip on your shoulder. And as I said, you're not a guy that seems to kind of be vocal about it, but as you kind of talked about a little bit earlier, you just go out there, let your play do the talking, and you keep doing it year after year of putting up big seasons.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing. Obviously, coaches vote and people see it how it is. My thought behind it is that I just have to leave, no doubt in anybody's mind that I'm a top linebacker in this league, and I feel like I'm still working towards that every time I step onto the field. And obviously, week by week, you look at the film and you see, oh, could have done this better, could have done that better, and just improving it day by day, trying to help the younger guys improve too. Kind of also leaning on that fifth year thing. In the years prior, we've had like a bunch of great leaders that I've been able to kind of look up to. But as the years go on, you kind of look around and you realize that now you're that you're that top guy. You're the unk of the team. So trying to lead the guys in the right direction is something that I've been trying to do more of this year. And try to be more intentional of that. So it's a work in progress, but still trying to do all that.
I'm glad you could say that you're the old guy on the team with a smile on your face. Usually, not many people could say that, saying that they're the old guy, but you're the veteran now on the team. As I said
Mhm.
earlier, you're the fifth year guy. I'm curious when talking about your teammates, as I'm sure I know it is hard to talk about yourself for too long, but talk about your teammates and yourself here for a moment, Andy. I'm curious. You play in a very talented defense. Having a little bit of a relationship with Coach James Moore, your defensive coordinator, playing against him in my time in the BCFC, kind of knowing the caliber of coach he is, the teacher he is as well as a coach. But talk a little bit about kind of how cool and maybe how fun it is to play in this linebacking core this year specifically. Obviously, a guy you're very familiar with in Raiden, who's been Valley Husker now for a number of years. He moves into that kind of Sam linebacker position this year for you guys. Has been very effective moving into the box and kind of up to his usual stuff of being very active on game days. Then you guys get a guy like Jack Winey who comes to the Valley Huskers this season and kind of made a linebacking core that I kind of talked with Coach Reese pregame when you guys were in Nanaimo a few weeks ago of, you could argue not only best in the BCFC between you three guys, but you could argue maybe even best in the CJFL as a whole. So how fun has that been to, I'm sure, like, Sundays when you're breaking down film together, like getting in the film of watching, that guy make a play, watching Raiden, watching Jack. And I'm sure that also, like the old saying of like iron sharpens iron. You're not wanting to watch Raiden and Jack when you make too many plays. You're wanting to make them, I'm sure, yourself. But talk about that dynamic and how cool and maybe how fun that's been this year.
I feel like every year I've been here, our linebacker core has been really stacked, which I've been thankful for. But then it also leads to not too many tackles to go around between all of us. So obviously it's always a competitive fight to you know get those tackles in and still make sure that we're doing our responsibility, doing our job. But yeah, Raiden Maston, All Star last year, DB, great player, really athletic, can play anywhere, great IQ and everything like that. So he's been really, really good to have by my side this year. Because he was playing DB last year, I wasn't able to kind of work with him as much, but it's just been really good to know that on my side I have a great linebacker to help me out if I miss a tackle or fill the responsibilities where needed. And then Jack Winey also coming to the program this year. I think the first thing I realized is that this guy's like crazy strong. I think when we were doing testing, he had what 30 something reps of 225 on bench, like an absolute monster. Um, and he's been dealing with a few injuries this year, so he's been trying to work through that. But no, incredible guy, incredible linebacker too. So I feel really protected in that middle, knowing that we have a great kind of linebacking core to anchor the team. But yeah, it's really fun to play with them. It's been a fun time so far.
Yeah, when talking about a few of you guys, you talked about the linebacker core, kind of you being always in the middle of a stacked position group. But you talk about guys like Raiden, guys like Peyton, some of these leaders that have been a part of the Huskers now for a number of years. How cool is that? Or maybe you haven't even been able to think about that now because you're so into it right now, and you're waiting, I'm sure, to maybe after your career until you're an actual unker, until you get a few more years out of it. But how cool has that been for you to realize that like you've been one of the key kind of foundational players in Coach Reese kind of coming to the Huskers, bringing a ton of stability, and you've been one of the centerpieces, especially on defense, right? With, as I said, a few of those guys, Raiden being around for a while, but you being a true fifth year player, being in the Huskers program, kind of believing in them. You're also, I know you're from Abbey, but somewhat of a hometown grown talent, right? Being 30, 40 minutes away from Valley. So how cool has that been done? I'm sure if maybe you haven't maybe truly been able to appreciate it yet, but it has, I'm sure, cool maybe once you're able to, look back on things.
Mhm. Yeah, it's been really nice. I mean, going into the CJFL, like I had to choose between, I guess, talking to Langley to try and get on that team, or talking to Valley, and I chose Valley just because there's a few more familiar faces there, and I haven't regretted the decision. Along the line, so many great players I played with. Even you're talking about James Moore and all that. I played with James Moore. My first and second year, I played with my linebacker coach Dion Kelly. I played with D line coach Isaiah Latondra. So many players that are now even coaches like I've played with. So it kind of just makes the whole family thing. I'm very familiar with everybody there, and like players past and players right now. Like it's just a great family. I mean, so happy, and just staying in one spot the whole time, not switching teams or not giving up. I've been really eager and trying to be very purposeful and trying to place my team in the right position to win. And yeah, it's been good. It's like it's my last year, and it's kind of bittersweet in that sense. But I mean, I feel like the work's not finished, and there's still so much more football to play. So I'm excited to finish the season out, and just play for the Valley as hard as I can for my last few days.
Yeah, I love that. A great answer there, Andy. And last one here for you, buddy, before we let you
Mhm.
go. I know you're, as I was saying, busy guy, still got practice to go here
Uh-huh.
tonight and whatnot. So we appreciate you for jumping on here tonight, chatting a little bit about your season and your career a little bit. So I'm curious, when talking about your squad now specifically, as I said, I was the color analyst for your guys' game here in Nanaimo a few weeks ago. I was able to chat with Coach Reese and Coach Todd Hunter before the game and stuff like that, and even Coach Reese post game a little bit. And I'm sure you guys as a team are kind of tired of some of the moral victories and some of the things that maybe people like me and maybe some of the stuff that narratives are coming out of. Like you guys are a much better football team than your record indicates. Of the 1-3 record, being in a ton of close games. The one to start the season was a weird one with Valley and all the implications with some of the injuries and whatnot, some of the delays that happened there. The Langley game was, I'm sure, a game that you feel like you guys could have won, especially the VI one as well. Able to get a win 2 weeks ago versus Kamloops and get the ball rolling in the right direction. Now you guys go into a bye week and come out of the bye week with a very, I feel like, winnable schedule in front of you guys. What's your guys' mentality as a group here of, a lot of you guys that I'm sure very motivated to get yourselves into playoffs because you guys are right there, right? With one win, you guys are only a win behind VI and Langley who are in front of you guys, and you guys are gonna have a lot of games here in front of you to kind of control your own destiny and get yourself into one of those four playoff spots. So, what's kind of your guys' mentality as a veteran group that's been there? I'm sure there hasn't been much panic. I'm sure it's been a little bit of like, man, this maybe hasn't been the way I would have liked to start my fifth year season in the BCFC. But at the end of the day, right, you guys are right there with a puncher's chance to get into the playoffs. And what are you guys, I guess, saying in the locker room to kind of reassure those younger guys that as fifth years of like, man, let's just go handle our business here for the next month of the season, stack some wins, and we can be right in the middle of the playoff picture.
Well, it's tough, going into the season, you ranked high, and you play a few close games on the road, and they don't go in your way. I mean, they end up as losses, so it's kind of discouraging. But we're not fully discouraged at all. We still realize that there's a lot of football left, and there's still a playoff spot waiting for us. So we know what we got to do every day. You look at the film and you see the mistakes, but they're not like mistakes that we can't fix. So we're not too worried. It's going to be an uphill climb. There's very talented teams out there. PG is on the rise now too. We got them for 2 games. We got Langley, which should be a winnable game for us. And then we'll go from there. So it'll be a battle because every team in the league is pretty even. But I feel like we definitely have the team to do it, and we know that we have the talent. It's just about when we put the pieces together. So I mean, it's just keeping the guys up. I mean, everybody comes here expecting the win, and if you don't get that right away, it's kind of like, oh, like is this season the one? Is this season the one? But we're gonna play until the end and see where the chips fall. But I'm trusting that we'll get out the mud. So we're seeing, but um, I think I'm confident that the end of the season will be a good one for us.
Yeah, if you've been around the BCFC for a long time, or even for a little bit of time, you know how strong the parity is within the conference, right? Six teams probably could make it into the playoffs this year, and they're going to be fighting against each other. As you said, with some of the teams you're going to be playing, right? PG twice, Langley, I think BI is in there. All teams
Mhm.
that are going to be in playoff contention, right? I don't think you guys see Oki or West Shore again. So it's going to be an interesting one. As I said, you guys are a much better team when watching you guys and having a feel of the conference this year, a much better feel of the conference this year. You guys are definitely a much better team. So, Andy, I just want to thank you, buddy. I appreciate your time for jumping on here tonight. I know, as I said, a busy guy within the middle of your season, whatnot, trying to get a little bit of R&R, a little bit of that rest and recovery during your bye week, man. So I appreciate it, number one. And a big congratulations to you, number two, on setting an all-time record in the BCFC. Should be tremendously proud of yourself, man, especially a conference that's been around for a long, long time. So thank you. Wishing you and your team the best of luck in the rest of the season, man, and hopefully we'll chat soon.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Andy. Thank you to Valley Huskers linebacker, Andy Ofosuhene. Let's fix this. Let me get this centered a little bit. To Andy Ofosuhene, linebacker of the Valley Huskers, new all-time leader in tackles in the BCFC. Big time shout out. Thank you to Andy for jumping on tonight's Inside the BCFC episode, chatting a little bit about his season and his career and what the Valley Huskers got going on as well. So let's get back to some business as usual. Before we do, of course, folks, if you guys are enjoying today's episode of Inside the BCFC, if you guys like to see us feature more athletes opposed to some of the recaps, let us know in the comment section down below, as well as comment down below giving Andy a great big congratulations on behalf of the Fanatics. And of course, liking the video, subscribing. When you subscribe, press the notification bell. You guys get notified every time we go live or upload a video like this one. So let's get into a quick recap and let's get out of here in a nice short time frame. Let's get into game number one, which was the Prince George Kodiaks picking up their third win of the season over the Kamloops Broncos by a score of 31-12. The Kodiaks now starting to get a little bit hot here, perhaps at the right time of the season, right? I believe the saying in the CFL is no football matters till after Labor Day. Labor Day is this upcoming weekend, so potentially could be true. Although I don't necessarily 100% agree with that. I think putting yourself in position by Labor Day to get hot at the right time is probably the more accurate saying. But that being said, PG is playing their best football at, I don't want to say the right time, but getting close to the right time. A few more weeks ahead, if they're still playing like this, I feel like this is the right time, and PG is arguably the hottest team. They are the hottest team currently in the BCFC, and a few weeks' time, if they continue their level of play, they could still be the hottest team going into very meaningful football. So they're coming off not only getting their third win, but back-to-back wins for the Kodiaks. And once again, Thiessen was able to be his Thiessen, excuse me, was able to be his efficient, productive self. Maybe not so as efficient this week, with his stat line being 12 completions for 28 attempts, 201 passing yards, one touchdown, one interception. Not too active on the ground as we've seen him be. Actually, excuse me, I was looking at the wrong person, I guess is what I'm trying to say, a wrong category, I guess. He chipped in as well with 4 carries for 40 yards. He's been effective as a dual threat this year. I think very quietly, he's been a very active um, quarterback, being able to tuck it and run when nothing's there downfield. And, nothing crazy. As I said, with the 4 carries, 40 yards, he's very effective when he does it. I think he does look to pass first and isn't a guy that, stereotypically, or you look at him and kind of maybe profile him as someone that could be a dual threat, but he's very much so a sneaky, athletic quarterback who is capable of picking up first downs with his legs if you aren't able to keep containing him. Thiessen, as I mentioned, a guy that's going to be, having a big spotlight here in big time games for Kodiaks, for the Kodiaks, excuse me, to get some wins here down the stretch. I think Thiessen is going to be a big part of why they're able to stack some wins moving forward. So when you look at that receiving core, they continue to kind of chip in from all phases, as they don't really have one maybe true necessarily wide receiver one, but guys that continue to step up. Ben Fear, Carson Breer, of course, Marcel Stewart, Matthew Sturgis from previous weeks, guys that had some nice touchdown catches. Of course, starting running back Gavin Halverson, I think, is a very underrated back. He had himself a pretty quiet game, 4 carries for 24 yards, and he did have the 1 touchdown. But that being said, from a defensive perspective from the Kodiaks, definitely have to shout out a few guys as, let's see, bringing up the sacks here. Caden Crow, maybe a quieter game for his standards, as he is actually the current tackle leader this season in the BCFC. But you'd say a little bit more of a quieter game for Caden this week, as he only had 2 tackles, did have a fumble recovery though. But Kodiak's defense did a good job of bending and not breaking. I know Carter Moberg, new starting quarterback for the Kamloops Broncos. Maybe as we can transition into the Kamloops Broncos here quickly. Carter Moberg had his probably best showing as a Kamloops Broncos coming over from the Regina Thunder in the PFC. He finishes 22 of 38, 301 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Was able to be effective as a passer, as the Broncos have kind of struggled with that this season. Moberg now in his 3rd week in the program, so getting accustomed to the regime, scheme, all sort of stuff. The players getting a little bit more chemistry has been a bonus, I'm sure, for the Kamloops Broncos, as we see with his best game of the season. Ty Holmes was a guy who was being able to be effective. Obviously, they grew a chemistry very quickly. Brock Dufert, player to watch for us this week. He finished with 4 receptions, 89 yards, and a touchdown. To go back to Ty Holmes, so 6 receptions, 107. Colton Meikle is a guy that continues to, unfortunately, not get the targets, maybe, and just the, not even the targets you could say, but continues to not be as effective as I think Coach Vanke would like, and just as they need him to be, not for I think his doing, just implications outside of him doing is unfortunately, but one to keep an eye on as Carter continues to get maybe more comfortable. Maybe that's one little Colton will have a hot end to his 20. I was supposed to say 2019 season. How crazy is that? Wake up, Cole. His 2025 season. And um, as I said, the Kamloops Broncos kind of just need to get a win or two just to make themselves feel better. And I shouldn't even say win, a win or two. Just get a win, get yourselves feeling good, get the ball rolling in the right direction. Because as I said, Valley's right in front of you, VI, Langley, all right in front of you with 2 win teams. If they can just stack 1 win, although I'm not too sure if it's going to be this week with the Okanagan Sun and the Kamloops Broncos traveling to the Apple Bowl. But let's move on to game number 2 in week number 6, which was the West Shore Rebels taking the Battle of the Rock part number 2 by a score of 34-17 over the VI Raiders. The West Shore Rebels are a strong team, and they're showcasing their depth right now, which is, I think, a positive for that coaching staff in that program. Missing some very key pieces this past week with starting safety Gio Lanuzzi being out of the lineup, Carter Williams missing another game, back-to-back games for starting running back, Williams being out of the lineup for the West Shore Rebels, and they're able to, maybe last week was a little bit more tough sledding for the offense, but this week we're able to get back on track, get over the 30-point mark once again. Defense even chipping in some a little bit there, but this game was, to be honest, folks, and not even to, I know maybe some people off camera, even on camera in the comment section, call me biased, but this game was much closer leading up to some unfortunate things that happened for the Raiders. This game was, I believe, a tie game. I don't want to say late into the 4th quarter. Excuse me, it wasn't a tie game. It was 17-20 in the 3rd quarter. The Raiders going to backup quarterback Zach Golab to start the second half as Braden Jupe. I feel like maybe in the Raiders' minds, maybe a little bit of an up and down season where there's been some good, there's been some bad, wanting to maybe go with some, get a spark here and going to the rookie in Zach Golab. They go to him. He impressively led a drive actually in the 3rd quarter to cut that lead to, as it was a 20-10 lead, I think, out of the half. Golab leads a touchdown drive with Parker, I believe it was Parker Wells, who ends up punching in for the Raiders, cutting into 17-20. And from that point on, the Raiders struggled at holding onto the football as Golab actually ended up throwing 2 interceptions in the 4th quarter, and one of which was returned by Bronson Pfeiffer for a pick 6. The West Rebels secondary, I tell you, has been a busy unit, as they have been. I think this game was 3 or 4, and last week I think it was another 3 or 4 pick 6s, 3 in 2 games. Unbelievable that they've been able to have 21 points scored from their defense in their secondary specifically. But the West Shore Rebels are a strong group. Gavin Session is, for my money, the best quarterback in the BCFC, as he's continued to look the part, and still, I feel like, hopefully getting to another level or two if you're the West Shore Rebels. But he finished this game 19-26, 214 yards, touchdown, interception. Interception was thrown, or excuse me, the interception was made by number 27 for the Raiders, Kaya Saunders, who's had a few weeks getting back into the starting lineup. But the depth from the receiving core was, I think, nice to see. As Zion Brown, very quiet, held to -5 yards on the game. But Aiden Bowles, number 87, was able to chip in with a very impressive showing. Tyrell Hoffman, quiet in his return to the lineup as after he missed the first game up in Nanaimo 2 weeks ago. But as I said, with the depth and being able to step up when other guys maybe aren't able to get theirs in Brown and Hoffland, guy like Aiden Bowles able to step up into his role. And another guy, Tristan Remus, number 81, 53 yards. He was able to step up when his number was called upon, number 81. He was effective up in Nanaimo 2 weeks ago as well when Hoffman was out of the lineup. So when you look at them without Carter Williams, obviously that's a little bit of a missing piece, but they did not need it in this one. Defensively, they were able to, as I said, just kind of take advantage, of some of the turnovers. They finished with three, one going to Cameron Cohen. He was able to have 4 picks in 2 weeks off the Raiders. I'm sure he's going to love playing the Raiders once again, trying to get some more of those. Bronson Pfeiffer was able to have his pick, which was returned for a 20-yard touchdown. And then Ben Matai was able to chip in with another interception as well. Will Bromwell, guy that I have to mention, who was very effective at closing out the game for the Western Rebels in the fourth quarter, finished with a sack, finished with a few tackles for loss throughout the game, although not credited or not, unfortunately, in the stats category, this kept in the stats category. Will Bromwell was an effective player defensively for the Rebels once again. Got to be frustrating times for Coach Sean Rabsky and the BI Raiders defense as they battled for a majority of this game, as I mentioned. But unfortunately, the dam broke there in the fourth quarter, and with turnovers being setting the defense into bad positions. But other than that, the Raiders can't hang their heads too much, right? They have a very next month of the season, even end of the season, a very manageable, winnable stretch here where they have to handle their business to make sure they punch a spot into the playoffs. As they're going to see a number of these playoff teams and even the West Shore Rebels once again. So they gotta flip the script. They gotta get on the right track once again as they've lost two straight back to back to the West Shore Rebels after picking up their second win of the season, but they're going to host the Kodiaks this upcoming week, and it'll be curious to see who's going to be trotting out as the starting quarterback in Nanaimo, 5:30 p.m. from NDSS Q Stadium. Will it be Braden Jupe or will it be Zach Golab once again? Stay tuned. That's going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on because both teams are battling for playoff spots and to be probably in that third spot come the end of the season. So let's get into the last one, which was the Okanagan Sun. The Sun doing Sun things once again. 48 points on the board. Very dominant victory over the Valley Huskers, 48-7 in the Valley at Exhibition Stadium. Tough one for Valley, matchup wise with the Okanagan Sun, and just the Sun have been an absolute juggernaut. Opposed to the last two games, I guess for them were a little bit of weird ones as they were down to the Kodiaks before the bye 2 weeks ago, 11-0 before they ended up making a comeback, and then 3 weeks ago we're down fairly big to the Western Rebels before winning that one in an absolute thriller, 43-39. Felt like this was kind of inevitable for the Okanagan Sun to get back on track and get back on track in an explosive way that they did in this one. And even there, without some missing pieces, they were able to display their depth. When you look at their linebacking core specifically, right? Obviously, they've been without the services of the best player in the country, and Jacob Bonney, who's been with the BC Lions this entire CJFL season. Missing Grayson Statham, who had started in Bond's place, linebacker for the Okanagan Sun, fifth-year linebacker, who's been a fantastic player for them this year. And then without the reigning sack king in Jaquintus Summers, who had missed the game, 8 sacks in 4 games for Jaquintus Summers. Without all three of those guys defensively, they were able to be very impressive. Only 7 points given up from a very tough group offensively, which is the Valley Huskers, who, Jaron Hardesty might be the best running back in the CJFL and the BCFC. And I'm sure there could be some comments here that oh well, look at I should let me bring this up so I get this right, so I don't because he has been having a fantastic season. I believe he actually leads the conference. It could be even the country in Marcus Christos, backup quarterback, short yardage quarterback for the Okanagan Sun, leads the conference in rushing yards. I believe he's up to rushing touchdowns. I believe he's up to 8 now after finishing with 5 carries, 21 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. If they get around the goal line, it is almost automatic for Marcos Christos to come into the game, punch it in for the Okanagan Sun, and has been a As I said, I was just about to say with Keyshawn Dorsey, Juwan Harb, the Valley Huskers could be arguably the best running game as a tandem, as a group. You can't forget about the Oakland Sun as a tandem with, as I said, Jaron Hardesty, maybe the best, not maybe, is the best running back. Can't forget about Christos and his ability as a short yardage quarterback to pick up first downs, pick up touchdowns as well. That is definitely an interesting one as those two tandems go head to head. And of course, this one with the Oakland Suns defense being as good as it is, they're able to get the better of this matchup. So Jawad Harb, quiet one for him on the ground as the Oakland Sun defense is just up to their usual tricks. Peyton Lake was able to get back into the end zone for back-to-back weeks, but he continues to have a quiet season from a reception and yardage standpoint. Trey White was able to have his best game or flash again. He finished with 4 receptions for 106 yards for the Valley Huskers. And of course, as I mentioned, Christo was finishing with the 2 touchdowns rushing. But Hardesty, once again, 16 carries, 98 rushing yards. Strong game on the ground for him. Liam Kroger had himself probably his best game of the season. He finishes 17-23, 289 yards, no interceptions, 2 touchdowns, was spreading the ball around fantastically as Falconer finishes 5 for 85. Who else on here? Vincent, 3 for 67. Number 85, 3 for 60. Seth Halliburton, number 13, he was a guy that was effective for them as well, 3 for 66. And then defensively, I believe Jarvion Williams was able to get on the stat sheet as he tries to maybe make up for the missing services of Jaquintus Summers. Jarvion was able to get 2 sacks. I think he's could be up to 7 now in the season, one behind Jaquintus Summers. So it's going to be interesting to see who will catch or maybe who will try to hunt down. Darn it, why can I not remember his name? Evan Foster at 16 sacks for the all-time record in the CJFL for sacks in a season. So that'll be an interesting one as those guys try to track that one down. That puts an end to it, folks. Inside the BCFC episode number 7 as we head into week number 7 in the BCFC, which looks like, as you guys can see below, the West Shore Rebels at 4-1 taking on the Langley Rams over in Langley at McLeod Athletic Park. Prince George Kodiaks at 3-2, traveling over to the island, take on the Raiders in Nanaimo at 2-3. And then the Kamloops Broncos taking on the Okanagan Sun in the Apple Bowl with the Valley Huskers on a bye week. That Langley game will be a 4 o'clock kickoff. The VI Raiders will be a 5:30 kickoff. And in Okanagan and the Apple Bowl will be a 7 o'clock kickoff. Your last reminder, folks, that if you guys aren't in at Langley, Nanaimo, or Okanagan, you guys can get out to the parks. Tune in to BCFC TV as specifically tune into BCFC TV at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, as yours truly will be on the call once again as color commentator for every VI Raiders home game this season, and on BCFC TV as shout out to the league and all the production company for the fabulous job they do to put on the production. Tune into that, folks, as it should be a fantastic one here in Nanaimo as both teams try to fight for playoff spots behind the Okanagan Sun and West Shore Rebels as the Prince George Kodiaks sit at 3-2, the BI Raiders at 2-3. If BI is able to get their third win, make things even tighter in the conference's race. And of course, West Shore and Langley is going to be an interesting one. If Langley is able to, maybe sneak one in and get a victory here over the West Shore Rebels, who have been hot and looked like kind of the rightfully number 2 team behind the Okanagan Sun. Langley still sitting there with could be 3 wins if they're able to get a victory, and they are playing at home, so it's something else that is in their favor. So lastly, folks, if you guys are enjoying all the BCFC content as always throughout this 2025 season, please be sure to leave a like on today's video, comment down below on today's video, let us know how you guys are enjoying, as well as, of course, give a great big thank you, congratulations for Andy for jumping on here today. Not only that, for breaking the all-time record in tackles in a career in the BCFC with 181 and counting, as Andy will still have another 5 games this season to stack that number as high as he can. So hopefully nobody is able to break it in the future. Other than that, folks, I believe that'll do it for episode number 7 here on Inside the BCFC on the Canadian Football Fanatics. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.